My pronouns are so difficult. I use she, her because it's easy for most people. When people say he, him, like that's funny and like interesting to me, especially people who don't know me. I don't prefer one or the other. If you mix it up, it's fun. They, them is often troublesome because I have to explain to people, and so as a result of me being lazy, I don't use they, them, and so when I hear they, them used on me, I'm like a little like not used to it. But not that I don't use it, I'm not used to it. So those are my pronouns in more than 1 minute. I think the best way is to ask, only because but then you sort of highlight the fact that you look specifically genderqueer, and I can't tell what your pronouns are based on your presentation unless you ask everyone who's like clear, like who otherwise would clearly be using like a she, her, or a he, him pronoun, their pronouns as well. You're specifically calling somebody else out for looking genderqueer. That's hard. I don't like it when people ask me for my pronouns, because then I feel called out. But then if they like switch around and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, she, and then I'm like, no, it's fine, I can use he, but they wouldn't know that otherwise. So I don't have an answer to your question. I personally would rather you not ask me my pronouns and just use whatever. I almost feel like it wasn't like exploration necessarily, it was more like finally coming into it, because I've always been like a tomboy as a kid, but I would have to wear t-shirt and jeans because that's the most gender neutral. Like any like girl or guy could wear t-shirt and jeans and it wouldn't be construed as like, ooh, too feminine or too masculine. And so I never had a good style as a result of that, or I felt like I just looked like basic and ugly. And then until I came to the US, where I figured out that I can do whatever I want. I have like, you know, some sort of agency, and started buying clothes that were like button-ups, a bit more masculine. And at some point I decided I don't actually have to be super masculine, I can sort of like play around with it, and that's probably the explore phase. But before that I was more like, okay, I'm finally enjoying what I wanted to wear, because I would look at people who would like, you know, are tomboys too, and then could wear like a button-up shirt with a suit and they look so good, and I was like, I want to be that. So, you know. Oh, okay. My 5-word version or more is queer, let me try that again. I would do queer, small, Singaporean. That's how I would identify. Like, queer would be like sexuality-wise and gender-wise. But that's like in parentheses. Oh, I've been a small, like, just short my entire life. So I noticed that I see the world very differently from other people who are taller, in multiple ways. One, I look like a cute little boy, or, you know, when I was younger, a little girl, and so I got away with a lot of things because I was like, oh, this cute person, quite harmless, like, it's fine, they probably mean well, whatever, and so I could, you know, be late to school and all that kind of stuff, and it's always okay. And then the other thing is also, people don't respect me as much because I'm small, they think I'm a child, and so it's less so in work because I've gotten, you know, I've worked with these people for so long, and so they sort of know who I am as a person. But usually when it's like in a networking session or something, right, there's a whole bunch of like tall people and then I'm the short one, like just looking up and talking to them is just kind of weird. In bars as well, like it's very subtle, but you can tell that like sometimes people like sometimes don't even see me, like their eye level is here and I am here. And so it's very subtle in like social interactions, but I see it all the time. To be fair, I had a sort of small rule that I will not date anybody who's too much taller than me, because I just think that that dynamic is awkward. Yeah, not that it's like a strong rule, but like, you know, if I walk into the room with somebody that's really tall, I don't know if like I get like overshadowed, like if that person would be like the main person, or like, I don't know, like never really explored it, so I don't know. that was the hardest moment ever. So I was coming out to myself. I was watching all these like lesbian movies ever and trans movies. Not that there are many, but I was also graduating high school and was applying to colleges. And so I'm from Singapore, born and raised. I went to one of the best schools in Singapore, and so I had a lot of resources. So I must acknowledge that privilege. We had an office where there were college counselors. They basically prepared you in terms of like, you know, they vetted your essays, they made sure that you had good recommendations, and they put all the pieces and do all the administrative stuff, as well as advise you on which college you should go to. And so it was in that room where I wrote an essay that was like, I am not a normal girl. Like, I don't like to wear dresses. I like to wear pants. Like, my essay was trash in the first draft. But my college counselor knew that I was queer. And I didn't know at the time, but she was also queer. And she was like, okay, why don't you talk to me? Like, what's going on with you? And I took like 5 minutes to say the words like, I'm gay. Or I may be gay. That was what I said. And she sort of like pushed my buttons a little bit, because she was like, what do you want to say? At your age, there are only 3 things. You know, either you're gay, and I was like, oh, or you like killed your best friend, or something ridiculous like that, or you have 3 boobs. And I was like, okay. So what would you say if you had 3 boobs? Like how would you tell somebody that? And then she was like, I'd be like, hi, my name is Jasmine and I have 3 boobs. How about you? And I was like, who is this woman? Why are you so like comfortable? And I was really awkward. And then the next day she was like, okay, tell me your secret now. And she sat down and she looked at me and she was like, tell me. And it took me 5 minutes to say, I think I may be gay. And her response was, okay, cool. And I was like, wait, what? That's all your response? I expected like you like yelling at me or something. And she's like, what response do you want me to have? And I was like, okay, fair point. So that was the first time I came out to anybody, and it was a great coming out of sorts. But then, you know, I was always struggling with like my parents and everybody else, but that was my safe space, and that was like the story I tell everybody, because that woman was the only reason why I got firstly into NYU for college, and also I got really comfortable with myself. And you know, like small little things, like I wanted to go to A camp, and like autostraddle A camp, she would like spot me like $50 so I could like apply and like see if I could get a spot and stuff like that, you know. So yeah, I don't know, that was my first experience coming out. I think there are like a couple of aspects to it. Like, one is my family, right? Dynamics. So, you know, my mom and my dad separated when I was 6, and so my mom and it's just my mom and myself, like, you know, the 2 of us against the world of sorts. And so I was everything that she had. And so I mean, still is kind of the case, even though I now have like, you know, a step family of sorts. And so yeah, I've like brothers and sisters now, which, you know, I love, but it's still like 2 of us against the world type of mentality sometimes. And so she expected me to be one way, and I came out the other way, and she's worried about me because we're also religious. And so she's always worried that, you know, I would go to like hell when I am dead. And so, you know, she doesn't want that for me, obviously. And so it comes from a place of concern. It comes from a place of, you know, just, it comes from a place of love, but she just doesn't know like what it means to be queer and struggling with all of these, with all these things. And so, you know, half of that is because of religion. I don't know about the Singapore piece, because there are some facets of Singapore where you can be queer and you can be out. However, on a societal basis, it's very, I don't want to say conservative, because I don't want to paint the light of like, oh, these like Eastern countries are conservative and then the West is like so liberal, right? Like, I hate that sort of like that sort of like narrative. But there are conservative pockets, and my social circle happens to be there. And so I wish it wasn't, but it's okay. Like, everybody there is still really nice, and they all come from a place of concern and love, but it just doesn't result in the right answer for me. So that's generally how I see it.
Cool.
I would say to them, be strategic, because Singapore is a very small society. If you're not ready to fully come out, honestly don't, because you may say something on your Facebook or whatever, and one of your friends will like post and or like tell your other friends, and like it's such a close society. I mean, we're a really small country anyway, but like if you want to come out and you're not sure, take 2 steps, breathe, talk to someone that you trust and know will accept you. And there will be some people, or somebody who's honestly you're not even close to, that you know will accept you. There are a lot of spaces in Singapore that are like that. They're very small and they're maybe a little bit hard to find, but honestly if you just Google, you'll find it. Just talk to them. The best part is actually talking to somebody you don't really know very well. Like that college counselor, I didn't know her at all before that, and then now she's one of my best friends. So I would say talk to somebody. Randomly DM people, even if they're like honestly across the country, across the world, like do it. You need whatever you need to survive, and do whatever you have to do. I feel like I've been like all the things that I'm seeing are very separate. One is like LGBTQ people are specifically celebrated, maybe because I follow those like Instagram accounts, and so like I'm like, ooh, everything's great, everybody loves queer people. Although there's tokenization that happens, but that's like a separate big issue. And then there are the other parts where like, oh, queer people getting like hate like messages, hate attacks and stuff like that, people die. And then the shooting that happened at Pulse, that was like probably the scariest thing for me. A lot of these other things I know is real and happening to people outside, but I don't feel them as much because I am honestly quite, I don't really read the news that much. I try not to. It hurts. But the Pulse thing really scared me a lot. And so I don't know what the biggest issue is. I'm still trying to think. I think like that, and honestly I think rape culture is something that's not targeted at queer people as much, but I think that is, if I had to pick one big issue in the world, it would be that. And sometimes we are all complicit in it by like, accepting certain like patterns of speech and or encouraging, or not encouraging, but like not discouraging certain actions from other people or ourselves. I think that is a big thing. Not to say that that's specific to the queer culture, though it's definitely not like separate. It's also there.
Yeah.
Wow. I like a lot of things. Now I did not before. But I think I like that I'm unique, and so I get the attention in the room, and or like people notice me, and so as a result of me just looking unique, the moment I start to speak, people sort of then in their minds confirm that I am an individual. Like people don't forget me, and whether that's for like good or bad, people don't forget me. And then, for me, that's really easy for me to make friends, to make connections, and like, just relationships with people in general. And I love, meeting new people, doing new things. I'm like the extrovert, like, I don't know what that survey, or what is that called? The personality test thing is. I'm like all the way to the end, like extrovert. So that's me. So I love meeting people and like being unique, and like people don't forget me, stuff like that. That really helps, and it just makes me like really like happy. I don't know, that's not the right word, but just to like hang out with people and meet new people. So